Trump set to order China trade investigation. Donald Trump is set to launch an investigation into China's trade practices later, a move which could lead to the U.S. imposing sanctions. The president will sign a memorandum directing U.S. Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer to look into China's intellectual property practices. U.S. officials have accused China of stealing intellectual property from American companies. But the China Daily newspaper said the move could poison China-U.S. relations. Mr. Lighthizer will launch a Section 301 investigation, which allows the president to unilaterally impose tariffs or other trade restrictions to protect U.S. industries. Sanctions could follow from the investigation, but there is no guarantee. In the 1980s, tariffs were levied against Japanese motorcycles, steel and other products, but no sanctions have been imposed by the U.S. since the World Trade Organization, WTO, was launched in 1995. The president tweeted that he was returning to Washington, D.C. to announce the memorandum. Why is the Trump administration concerned? Donald Trump has long railed against the massive U.S. trade deficit with China. The total trade relationship was worth $648 billion, £500 billion, last year, but trade was heavily skewed in China's favor with the U.S. amassing a $310 billion deficit. Some of that deficit, the argument goes, is because Chinese firms are copying U.S. products and ideas and either selling them back to the U.S. at a lower price or squeezing U.S. imports out of the Chinese market. How much does intellectual property infringement cost? The Commission on the Theft of American Intellectual Property estimates that the annual cost to the U.S. economy from counterfeit goods, pirated software, and theft of trade secrets is between $225 billion and $600 billion. The Commission says that China is the world's principal intellectual property infringer, and it accounts for 87% of counterfeit items coming into the U.S. The Office of the Director of National Intelligence in November 2015 put the cost of economic espionage through hacking at $400 billion a year. The European Union, Japan, Germany and Canada have all expressed concern over China's behavior on intellectual property theft. Unraveling trade system. Some critics say President Trump's action is a dangerous move that could cause the international trade system to unravel. While intellectual property theft and copyright infringement are major problems, pursuing them with such a blunt instrument could prompt China to take retaliatory measures, according to Deborah Alms from the Asian Trade Center. There will be a lot of collateral damage along the way. I understand the impulse to get tough, but if I were a company in China, I would be very worried about this, she says. There were hundreds of Section 301 investigations in the 1970s and 1980s, but the policy tool was largely set aside after the WTO brought into effect the binding dispute system, largely at the prompting of the U.S. Deborah Alms says that if the U.S. casts aside the system it helped to develop over 30 years, other countries might be tempted to act unilaterally too. What does China say? Official media in China has criticized the investigation. A Xinhua news agency commentary labeled the move outdated and said it would hurt both countries. In an editorial, the official China Daily urged the Trump administration to pursue a different path. It said the move could not be seen in isolation from North Korea, and what President Trump sees as China's failure to rein in the country's nuclear ambitions and missile program. Instead of advancing the United States' interests, politicizing trade will only exacerbate the country's economic woes and poison the overall China-U.S. relationship, it said.